Oh, welcome back to Alpacamade. I am so glad you're here today because today, on Thursday, June 11th, 2020, we are finally starting our soap series, and this is part one. This is the project that 6 or 7 months ago I asked you, what's the next project? Bag of foam or pile of stuff? And pile of stuff was the loser, but bag of foam had to be put off for reasons I'll explain when we finally do that project, to what we're really here for, and that is for us, meaning you and I, to make soap for the very first time without having done a practice run. All right, first things first, safety first. There are goggles there, which I cannot wear because they don't fit over my glasses, but I just want you to know I have them. I have these very fancy she long gauntlet gloves, which are, probably way over the top feminine for me. I tend to dress in jeans and t-shirts. And then I have some coconut oil, some white beeswax, lye, which is right under my finger, and water back there. And then my hand is right over, bringing forward some oatmeal. And then in the back, then I have my blender right next to all that lye and water. And off camera, there is a soap mold and a spatula. And then this is my olive oil. I'm just using straight olive oil, not extra virgin anything. So let's see what kind of mess we can make out of this stuff. I'm going to confess to you right now that I forgot to turn the light on. And the reason is I am so nervous about this. I literally had to talk myself into doing this. And I can't even tell you why, except for back in November, I had the basics. I had the oil, the lye, the water, the oatmeal, the coconut oil, and the beeswax. And so I could make this as I pour in the beeswax or the coconut oil. No, I have not melted it because it's very soft right now, even though it's considered a hard oil because of the air temperature. It's very soft, so I'm going to use what is called a heat transfer method, which means I'm not going to cool down my lye solution. I'm going to mix my lye into water. It's always dry into wet with lye. I'm going to mix those two together, and then almost immediately I'm going to pour it in. I'm not going to let it cool off. And there goes the beeswax. The reason why I'm doing this is it's so warm in the apartment, and the heat transfer method, in theory, is supposed to transfer the heat from the hot lye directly to the solid oils and melt them down. And since I'm using very fine beeswax pellets, I feel that's a safe thing to do, even though this is our first shot at it. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if my theory was correct. And I forgot something. Looks like I forgot a measuring spoon for the oatmeal. So my wax, my oatmeal, and all of my oils are going in first. That's a tablespoon, and I'm going to put 2 tablespoons in for this volume of soap. And they're scant tablespoons, I'll admit. And now for the nerve-wracking part. Here we go. We're going to mix the lye into the water. And, gee, I disappeared. Where did I go? Lye into water, as I'm pointing out right now. And then we're going to mix that in with our oils. And like I said, in theory, the heat from the hot lye will melt those solid oils. I don't know if that's going to happen. We'll see. And then I'm going to stir it just a little bit with that larger spatula you saw. And after I do that, I think I just went to get a jar of water for my stick blender when we're done with it. So a few little twirls with the spatula. Brain damage. Apparently I forgot what I was saying. Few little twirls with the spatula, and we'll let it sit for a minute. It is hot. And then we will pour it in. I want you to see how milky it is right there. And as I move the spatula along the bottom, it's a little grainy. So you can see me testing it for heat. And maybe this is where I go off camera to get water. I'm not sure. Or no, to plug the stick blender in. So I was saying that I'm a little nervous about this process. And I can't really tell you why. We could have done this back in December, early first week in December is when I said I was going to do it. I had the basics, as I said, but I wasn't confident with the materials I had. And also the formula I had. I wanted to do a little more research, and you can see right there I'm showing you that milkiness is starting to clear, and I'm testing it for heat, and it's hot. Do not put your face over this stuff. You're okay as long as you're ventilating your room, but if you put your face over it, like I have my face over this big bowl right now, you will get a whiff of the lye water, and it does have a strong smell, and if you're like me, you'll automatically stop breathing. You'll just not, breathe. And so then pull your head back. That's your like fight or flight response. Just kick it in, pull your head back, get it out from over the fumes, and it'll be fine. So here we go. We can see, or I can see, I don't know if you can see, I guess you can, that hot lye water is starting to melt the coconut oil for sure. I'm a little nervous right now about whether it's going to melt the little beeswax pastilles. And what I'm telling you right there is that when you put your blender in, you have those holes. So don't just plop it in. Put it in sideways, give it a little shake so there's no air bubbles in there. And we're going to give this a stir, and then we're going to run the blender, and then we're going to stop. We're going to alternate back and forth like that. Run the blender, stop, run the blender, stop, and let the heat of the lye water melt those pastilles. And I'll tell you, it takes a while, so we're going to speed this up. So what I'm doing here is I'm watching those pastilles to see if they melt. I have to tell you, it made me a little nervous to do it this way. So you'll see me pulse, you'll see me stir, check for trace. We're not tracing yet, and we're there. You see that the blender is coated, and when I stop moving it around, you'll be able to see that it leaves an impression on the top. See how there's little drips on the top that stay there? That's trace. That I'm satisfied with that level of trace, even though it seemed like I would become a nervous wreck getting there. So I'm going to wash my blender off right away, and then I'm going to separate the motor from the actual blender mechanism and put it off camera, because now it's time to pour. And I'm just going to give the sides a little stir on this to make sure that nothing's drying out. It's important to remember that this soap batter is still hot in terms of chemicals. Maybe temperature has cooled down a little bit, but chemically it's still hot. And so anything that's had lye on it, whether it's your lye and water container or your stick blender, you want to get that rinsed off right away. You don't want hot solution sitting on that unattended, especially if you have kids or dogs or husbands who think that you're making a cake or something. I don't have those problems. So for me, it wasn't a big deal. Now, what I'm going to do is scrape out as much as I can into that mold until it's full. I'm going to set the mold aside for a second, and you can see that there are scrapings in the batter bowl, and I'm going to dump that right into the container that I had my coconut oil in, and I'm going to let it harden just air dry, just with nothing affecting it whatsoever. But for this loaf mold, I'm going to put a sheet of a sheet of bubble wrap on top, and then I'm going to take some Reflectix, which is basically Mylar bubble wrap, and I'm going to cover the top and the two long sides, which you will see in a second in a still picture. I'm not going to use blankets or towels or anything like that. It's really warm in the apartment, even now as I'm doing this voiceover. There's our little package with our Reflectix and our beeswax weighted down. And now we wait until tomorrow. And so I'll see you tomorrow morning, although it'll be 2 seconds for you. The color is beautiful. It's a butter yellow. It's just gorgeous. We didn't add any colorant in, if you remember earlier in yesterday's clip. So I'm going to trim it off. I'm going to take off the wooden mold, and then I am going to unmold it from the purple mold. And I have to tell you, I overfilled it. I should not have filled it to the top. I should have let the bubble wrap sink in just a scant 1/16 of an inch. And because I filled it all the way to the top, I had trouble getting it out of the mold. You could see where there's overpour there. And I know from having worked in a factory that overpour is never what you want, because it always causes you a little bits of trouble. So once I get it out of the mold, I cut what would be the flashing off if you were in the factory, and then we stick it in the cutter. And I discover, to my dismay, as I'm in the middle of this record, that I have no clue where my soap cutter is. None whatsoever. And I've been so careful to keep all of my soap stuff together in one closet, all organized this whole time. No clue where the soap cutter is. But let's just keep going. So it's a beautiful color. I can't say that enough. It's a nice buttery yellow. And you don't want to watch me struggle to figure out how far I want to push my loaf back and forth, so we'll cut to the end. Here's a close-up shot of the full-size bar and the little end slice next to it, and then here's another shot where you can see the oatmeal that we incorporated. And finally, here's our drying tray with the two little end pieces. I only got 9 bars out of this, and I weighed them, but apparently I didn't take shots of that. So they averaged about 5.7 ounces. That's more than I want in a bar. I want my bars to be more like 4.5 to 5. So I'll have to do a little adjusting. I'll have to find my cutter. And on Sunday, I hope to bring you the cousin to this, hot processed soap. So, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this. I can't say I really enjoyed it. I was just such a nervous wreck. But I will see you on Sunday, God willing. God bless you. Stay in good health. Take care.